Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's get on with it. And our first speaker is John C. Your sobriety date, John. Show me where you at.
I'm John, an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
May 13th, 1973. That comes out to 42 years and counting. I want to thank Jack and Janine and Alicia and anybody else who picked me to speak. I'm really very proud. I don't get picked often, you know. I'm that kid that you grew up with who was picked last for the baseball team, and a fight would break out between the two teams, between the team that had to take me and the team that... And they used to negotiate, and one would say, we'll take John, but we get 4 outs. And the other team would say, no, but you can pinch hit for him, you know, and because there was no pinch hitting in the South Bronx baseball, street baseball that I played as a youth. Anyway, so it's a rare and, if not a unique experience in my life to be somebody to say, we want you, John. And I'm very proud and humble. I got bad news for you. I have a boring story. I have a boring story, and I tell it badly. It's a bad combination. So what am I going to tell you? And the one thing that interested me about my story, and I've thought about it a long time, and I want to tell you how I became an alcoholic. And I believe I made 3 bad decisions in my life as I was growing up that made it inevitable for me to be an alcoholic. And I'd like to go through those. It started early. I was in my 8 to 12 period of my life. The debt surrounded me every year. One year, my best friend's father died. The next year, my father died. I was 10 when I lost him. The year after that, another close friend, his mother died. And I was reeling and trying to, you know, deal with this. And then an event happened that broke my back and my heart. I've had one dog in my life, a little black and white mutt that we called Rattler. Nice, friendly little dog. But he was epileptic, and he would throw seizures and fall down and convulse and foam at the mouth. And it wasn't rabies, because when he'd recover, he'd be the same loving dog that he always was. And my mother saw this, and she didn't want the dog to suffer, so she called the ASPCA and asked them to come over and take him. And the man from the ASPCA came over, and he surprised her. He asked her, do you want me to put him down, or do you want us to treat him? And my mother had no money. After my father died, she had no skills and a 4th grade education, and she didn't have money to spend on the treatment of our dog. So she was a loving woman. I know if she would have spent the money. So the man from the ASPCA put a rope leash around my dog and let him out. And as he let him out, my dog, with his tail between his legs and his head down, looked back at me, and I thought he was pleading with me, saying to me, please don't do this to me. Please, I'll be good. I'll do better. Please. And I couldn't take it anymore. It seemed that everything I loved was being taken from me, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I went into the bathroom, and I locked the door, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And finally, when I stopped crying, I wiped my eyes, and I clenched my fists, and I looked up to heaven, and I swore that nothing or nobody would ever make me feel this bad again. I shut down emotionally. And I came out of that bathroom a changed boy. I was a nice man. I had my mother and my brothers, but nobody else was getting in. I went on, because of my mother's heroic efforts of working 16, 18 hours a day, cleaning people's apartments and offices. She'd leave at 8 o'clock in the morning before I went to school, and she came home at 11 o'clock at night when I was getting ready for bed. And she did that year after year, you know, with strength and courage, and alone, and with a modicum of humor, too. You know, I had a perfect example of how to live my life, and of course, I turned my back on it. I got educated, I went to grammar school, went to high school. The first time I got drunk, I was in the hospital being treated for tuberculosis. And it was New Year's Eve, and I was in a ward with 4 or 5 of guys my age, and we wanted to join the party. So we had a nurse smuggle in a pint, I think, of whiskey, and we drank it and got moderately drunk. And my reaction was not that you hear sometimes of people saying, this is the answer, this is a discovery. You know, I know how to live my life now if I have alcohol. For me, it wasn't like that. It was just something interesting that happened, a different state of mind, but I didn't pursue alcohol after that. You know, the strange thing about my story is that for years I drank like a normal person. I could drink and put it down anytime I wanted to. I'm your garden variety, everyday, drunk, pure and simple. Maybe not so pure, but really simple. And you know, I believe I crossed the invisible line, and that didn't happen for years. I finished my high school education, and I went to college mainly through the kindness and generosity of a school teacher who thought I was too smart not to go to college. And she ran around till she found a scholarship that I was eligible for, and I went to college because of her goodness. And in college, I became what most of us become, you know, a know-it-all college guy. And I was overwhelmed by all the knowledge of philosophy and psychology and sociology and history. And I'd sit in the cafeteria with my friends, and we'd discuss the important events, you know, of life. What's the meaning of life, and what's the difference between good and evil, and how can we get girls to sleep with us? Yeah. And it started me to examine my basic beliefs and my religious beliefs. I was raised Catholic, and I tried to be a good Catholic. I was an altar boy, and a very popular altar boy. I was a real cute boy. And I even tried a seminary for a while, and that didn't work. And in college, I started to question my beliefs and the existence of God, you know, because I had really tried hard. I had tried to make contact, you know, and I could honestly say I didn't feel anything. You know, I felt like one of those astronomers who send these radio beams out into the universe, waiting for intelligence life to send a reply, and I wasn't getting any reply, you know, and I figured that was because there was nobody home. And so I gave up any religious convictions had, and a belief in a higher power or God or whatever you want to say. That was my second bad mistake. Now I was a man who had no lasting or deep relationships, and I had given up any kind of spiritual explanation to what the world was like that would give me comfort. I went on in college, and in my junior year, I started to worry about what I would do when I graduated, what kind of job I wanted. And I knew only one thing. I didn't want to be bored. You know, I didn't want a 9-to-5 job. And I had taken classes for creative writing, and my teachers were encouraging and thought thought I had some talent. And in fact, one of my teachers was going to show my work to William Faulkner's editor at Random House, but she died and nothing came of that. But I still was set. I'd like to try to be a writer, even though I didn't know how to do it. I knew, my family couldn't support me while I tried. And one day at the placement center at college, I saw a notice for a copy boy at a newspaper. And I said, this is perfect for me. A lot of writers started out at newspapers. And I went down and I applied for the job. And I got a job, and the hours were 9 to 5. 9 at night to 5 in the morning. And that was okay because it was May, and I could manage that for a month, and then summer started, and by the time September came, I had shifted to 5 to 1, and that was a much more manageable. I still could go to college full-time and go to work, too. And this was a great job. This was a great job. It was an exciting time, and I was there when JFK was shot. I was at the newspaper. I was there when RFK was shot. I was there when Martin Luther King was shot. I was there when Malcolm X was shot. I was there when the Andrea Doria sunk. And then on the other side, I accompanied photographers, and I sat in the press box and watched ball games, and then ran photographic plates back. And I'd sit at on the bench down where the Knicks played basketball, and they stunk then too. And but I was sitting there at courtside and watching them. The first time I went to a hockey game, 2 pucks dropped at my feet. I sat at ringside at boxing matches and wrestling matches. I stood on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera on the opening night, and I went to the horse show and rubbed elbows with society people, and I went to a rally, and I stood at the foot of the podium, and I could have reached out and touched Eisenhower. I'm just thinking, before I became a drunk, I was having a great time. But that would end because I was trying to write on my free time at the paper after work, and I began to see that writing was a hard job. It was you were open. You didn't know if it was any good. You don't know. It opened anxiety up on you. You had to keep doing it. You had to apply a great will to keep it up. And then a bad thing happened to me. I got promoted, and my and it was more money than I had ever seen. You got to remember, I came from a poor background, and a couple of $100 a week was like gold. And then I made my third bad decision. I thought I had earned some fun, so I put aside my writing ambitions, and just went out and played. And now you might have to know where I was. I had shut down emotionally. I had no significant relationship in my life. I had no higher power, no overriding spiritual guide, and now I had no meaningful work to do. Sigmund Freud says he defines sanity as the ability to love and work. And by Freud's definition and AA's, I was insane. And into that emptiness and that void, that lack of reason to get out of bed, I started to pour more and more alcohol. And my life steadily descended into the pit. And I want to say, I've only had 3 jobs in my life, and this job at the paper, was the 3rd best job I ever had. And I think probably that's because it was the job where I became an alcoholic. But anyway, I went on, and my life kept getting worse. It became so bad that I literally needed alcohol every 2 or 3 hours. If I didn't get it, I started to react. I would start to get the shakes. I would sweat. My nose would run. I had physical manifestations of withdrawal. And I was always, even at work, I would always manage to get across the street to the bar and reload between editions. And this one night we got busy, and I wasn't able to get across to the bar. And down in the composing room, I had a grand mal seizure and wound up in the hospital for 10 days. I worked with this great Boston Irishman who was in the program and let everybody know about it. And he visited me one time while my family was there, and they were wringing their hands over me, saying, "Oh, what happened? What kind of convulsion did he have? Is it serious?" And my friend, the Boston Irishman, was walking around the room saying, "He had a whiskey fit. He had a whiskey fit. That's what he had. He had a whiskey fit." And my family said, "Get him out of here." You know? But he was right, you know. I mean, old-time AA called a spade a spade. Anyway, I got out of there. They wanted me psychiatric help. I said, no. I said, I can stop drinking on my own. I lasted about 6 weeks. I didn't go to AA. That was for weaklings. And I said to it was a clear choice. I said, if this is what sobriety is like, I don't want to do this. And, of course, it wasn't what sobriety is like. So I went back drinking. Things got really bad, worse and worse. I always thought it was a point of pride for me that no matter how drunk I was or how bad I felt, I could always come into work and function. And that last week, I couldn't do it. One day, I gave up. I surrendered. But I didn't surrender to God. I didn't surrender to this program. I surrendered to alcohol. I was at a spot that Bill Wilson writes about his own alcoholism in the book, where he says, quicksand surrounded me at all sides. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. And that's exactly true. I had one friend left. He had gotten through my guard, and he called, and he made me call AA. I called AA. They sent over 3 guys. I think I called them my AA angels. They talked to me, and they said, you know, you want to get detox. And when I asked them what that was, they said, you go to hospital and be treated for alcoholism. I thought it was great. You know, I could lie down and people could take care of me, and it's what I always wanted all my life. Yeah. You know, I was a big baby, you know. I was Peter Pan without the charm. And they saved my life that night. And now I want to tell you how I reversed the 3. They took me to the hospital, and I haven't had a drink since. Now, quickly, I want to tell you how I reversed those 3 bad decisions. I knew I couldn't live the life I had led when I was drinking because everybody I knew hung out in a bar. So I had met a woman in a blind date, and I called her and asked her if she wanted to go out. She did, and so I spent time taking to a movie and a dinner, and I wasn't interested in any kind of relationship. I just needed somebody to spend time with so that I wouldn't drink. 4 years later, I married her. We'll have 39 years in June, and she's the greatest woman in the world. I've never had a dog again, but I've had 5 cats. And I've had to put 3 of them down. And each time I've put a cat down, I went home and I went into the den and I cried like a baby. And because what I knew as a child was true. If you love something, you put yourself in an awful place to be hurt really bad. But what I didn't know as a child was that pain is the price we pay for love. And it's a price we gladly pay because living without love is living in hell. My sponsor told me, you know, John, if you don't find a higher power, you'll be drinking again. I was terrified of drinking. I searched. After 2 tries, I found one, and it's the God I still believe in today. And the last thing is that when I got sober, I thought my writing ambitions were just an expression of my arrogance and wanting to be something special. So I gave it up. And to my surprise, I found out I couldn't give it up. And so I knew a man who, when he was on the paper, left, became a big success in Hollywood, and always said, if you want to try writing sitcoms, he said, I'll give you all the help I can. I asked him, he said yes. I worked in writing sitcoms for 13 years, and that was the second best job I've had in my life. They pay you a lot of money, essentially, to make each other laugh, you know, and it's not that I was so talented, it's just that's the nature of the business. And that's it, you know. And that's it. And except I want to tell you, I have one job left, and that's the best job I've ever had in my life. And that's the job to stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety.
Thank you, John. Thank you. See, we need more time for this event because they have great stories to tell. You know, it's just we just could do this for hours. Our next speaker is Sue B.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sue B., and I'm an alcoholic. This is amazing, but I'd really like to thank the panel for asking me to share. I was laughing out there. We're talking to someone about being on this panel, and, you know, we used to crack up when we were little peoples, meaning we're newly sober. We'd talk about the old-timers, and we'd call them O-farts, and I'm an old fart.
Your sobriety date.
My sobriety date is November 16th, 1974. You know, and it's a 41, it's a 41. Go figure. A little bit about how I got here, and I'm one of 9. Both my parents were alcoholic. If you guess Catholic, you're right. My name is Sue, my color's blue, and my number is 2. We had numbers and colors. Wherever we went, we had the same idea, the same outfits on, so there was no question about who we belonged to, you know. And like I said, both parents were alcoholic. My mom and dad divorced early on, and then she married that man. I always call him that man. And we were to go down to Santa Barbara, and then from there, Mexico City first, and then back up to Santa Barbara. And he'd had enough of his drinking, so he called my father, and he said, come and get your 7. And so Dad came to get his 7. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, he was drinking, and he really didn't want to interrupt his drinking. So he shipped all of us off to different schools throughout the United States, and I ended up at Convent of Sacred Heart in San Diego. And it really is where postulants become nuns and what have you. And, you know, it's like I had a really good education, I was to come home, and this house was absolutely nuts. You know, everybody had gotten home before me, and by the way, it was on Rockingham. You know, that's where OJ was, so we were right in line with the group here. And we'd come home, and everybody was drinking, nobody was in charge. And, you know, like I said, I had a heck of a good education, but when I got home, I really didn't know what I wanted to be. And so I tried this and that and this and that. And I used to say a lot, what's really wrong with me is this or that. And we had a heck of a time. We used to dance, go to bars and all of that. And for the first part, it was fun. You know, and then I was to land. Oh, this is really funny. Early on in my sobriety, this is familiar territory for me, because after I graduated from high school, I don't know how it happened. I was talking about the other day. I ended up, you know, with a bunch of lowriders down here on this side of the town, and we were to drink Brew 102 and Red Mountain. Yeah. The first drink, though, was when my mom was still drinking, and she didn't know what to do with us. So she, at Christmas time, it was actually New Year's, So she figured if she had this lady that was taking care of us, if she was to take us to Disneyland, and the lady tried to keep us in one place, so she filled up with a bathtub full of beer and wine, and she was right, nobody left. And, and then like I ended up, just to fast forward, I ended up in Roseman with 7 horses, 7 dogs, 3 cats, and a bull. And I highly recommend you don't go to an auction when you're drunk, because when I came home, I don't know what the heck, he was there. As a little person. So I rode barrels in that last, anybody that knows the barrels, you do like a figure 8, and the last one is you kind of twist around this barrel and you head home. Well, there were many times that I was like, would go turn to head home, and I would end up going head first into the railroad tie because too drunk to hang on. And so anyway, I had, like I said, 7 horses, 3 cats, and a bull. And, we start off with people, and like I said, I kept trying to fit in, and I didn't know where I belonged. So anyway, I ended up out there, and my drinking progressed to a point where I used to say, again, what's really wrong with me, and I would go to liquor stores out there, and I'd fill it up. Because in Avenue N 45th West in 1971, 72, there was a few bars in town, and that was it. And so I would fill up my with quarts and gallons of things because I knew it was going to be enough and that I would have to go back and get more. And anyway, so it ended up that one night, my next door neighbor, who was a quarter of a mile away from me, suggested that she had heard if you didn't drink for 2 weeks, you were not an alcoholic. I can do that. So I threw everything out. Not a good idea either. And at the end of 2 weeks, she said, well, let's go to a movie and a dinner. I said, yay. And so we went to California City. Oh, gosh. And after the movie, we were to walk into this place that where pizza, and it had a pitcher of beer. And wherever I went in that room, that pitcher of beer had my undivided attention. And I was to my next door neighbor was watching me drink, so I have to pick it up. I knew that she knew that I was, not trying to drink very much, so I try to get it up to my mouth, and I would slowly sip it, and I would put it down because I would know she was watching me. Anyway, we got home, and it was after 2 o'clock, and I had thrown everything out of the house, and now I'm pacing back and forth because if you're like me and you're an alcoholic, once you start that one thing, one is too many and 1,000's not enough. And anyway, I'm walking back, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was to be a knock on the door. I opened the door, and there was 2 guys that I had ridden barrels with, and they had alcohol, so I let them in. And that night, up until then, I'd gotten away with a lot of stuff. No matter how much or where I went, I always seemed to get out just sort of under the wire. And this night, it was not to happen. They had, like I said, alcohol with it, and, I really wanted to do the right thing. So I asked them to leave, and they didn't want to leave, nor did they choose to leave. And I ran back in my room because I was afraid, and they were to follow me to the room, and up until then, this always gets me. I was to get beat up and raped, and they held the knife on me until then I thought I was going to die that night because alcohol takes you to places you never thought you would go. And my mom called, and she said, I'm coming to get you. And she sent me up to Seattle, where a place that she had been. And when I got there, they knew what was going on, and they didn't give me any of the alcohol thing, didn't talk about alcoholism or anything, just kept me. And when I was to get on the plane to come home, I asked for a drink because that's what we do. And I was to come home, and You know, the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, I was to put words on what I felt that night. And then there was no halts bars drinking. I just got drunk no matter what. And my neighbor had, or my roommate, by that time I had a roommate, invited her friends over, and they had lots of alcohol. And after that, it's a situation that happened where I got beat up, etc. My next door neighbor was to give me a gun, and I used to take that gun out of the drawer and I put it to my head just to see what it felt like. You know, I didn't know how to live, but I wanted to die, but I didn't know how to live. And if you're an alcoholic like my variety, you know, just want to numb it, whatever it is. I just want to feel anything, because up until then, you know, I got away with stuff, and now I was to know that all the thought along the way that I wasn't worth saving. Then it was after that I knew that I wasn't worth saving. And my neighbor gave me a gun, and like I said, I put it to my head. And that night when she had her buddies come over, I don't know much of it, but I do know that I walked into my bedroom and I was to hold the gun up to my head again. And the guys that were there at the party came into my bedroom, and they saw what was going on, and then there was a struggle over the gun. You know, it wasn't until I got sober and I realized that, you know, God is good, because last night when there was a struggle over the guns, the gun did not go off, and it did not kill the wrong person. My mom called me again, and she said, "I'm coming to get you," and I was done. I was done. I said, "Do I have to get dressed? What do I have to do?" And thank you, Ann. You know, I was done. I had run out of all my good ideas. You know, just nothing worked. And she was to take me down to a place in Santa Monica. And, you know, they this is so funny. Alcoholics, you know, when we're butts are falling off, or we're tough, right? And, you know, I would just sit down and they would try to get me to participate in these things. And I would cross my arm and like, "Dare you?" And they said, "If you want phone calls or anything, you're going to have to go to this thing." And that was my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Huge place. It's on San Vicente. It's still going. And, you know, it's like what I heard, this guy got up at the podium and he talked about things that he had done. And I found myself hysterically laughing, because that's where the identification came in. I knew that, you know, I finally had found a home, and that I wasn't that person that alcohol takes us to places we want to go. And so they had us go to different meetings in Santa Monica. And, you know, I was to go to different meetings, and then I came home back to Avenue A and 45th West. I stayed there for 2 weeks without going to meetings, and finally I just got to the point that I had to go. And I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous answered the door. And they were to give my cars, you know, I had 5 cars that year, and they were to come and pick me up. When I was newly sober, I was picked up and carried along, and I went to a lot of meetings, and I found in these rooms the freedom that I looked for, the bottom of the bottle. I went to lots of meetings. I had H&I meetings, and after the first 2 years, I felt like there's got to be more to life than news, weather, and sports. And so I found this guy that introduced me to my sponsor, and we were to walk through the 12 steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, up until then, you know, kind of went to meetings and stuff like that. But once I did the 12 steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew that nobody could ever say to me, "You don't belong here," because I had fulfilled the conditions of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I said, I found the freedom that I looked from the bottle of the bottle. And we had a lot of fun. You know, we were at the rafters, and we were a rowdy group, and you know, it was like went to Beaver, Utah for them. Anybody's been there for Beaver, Utah for the campvention, and did a whole bunch of things and enjoyed. I just found people like me in here, and the thing is about not taking yourself so seriously. But one of the things that I know that as long as I look for the solution, stay out of the problem and look for the solution, not anything. You know, I just found the solution. And as long as I do that and keep moving forward, it's an amazing process. I'm the baby of this group, you know, and I can't imagine, nothing that says that I should be here tonight, but here I am, and it's by the grace of God, and putting one foot in front of the other and listening to the old timers, and I keep coming back. You know, it's really funny right now. I, you know, do experiments along the way, and one of the things that I used to do, or did, is I thought was, you know, one more time I'd get a horse, and, you know, I actually, he dropped me to the ground, and I broke 5 ribs, and, you know, just the silly ideas that I come up with, and, you know, it's the journey into sobriety. Both my mom died, and when she died, you know, it's hard because when you're that many, there's, you know, it all took us back to when we were kids. And, but, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous and my friend Fran, I was standing in my house, I'd been married, and I was standing in my house, he left that day. And the phone was to ring, and it was my friend Fran, and she came up to me, and she took me, and she carried me along the road until, you know, that freedom passed. And, you know, one of the things about laughter is when you're laughing out, you get to breathe God in. And you know that no matter what, you don't have to take a drink, and you keep coming back. Right now, it's pretty funny, we, my husband and I, have mold in our bathroom. So they've torn everything out. And you know what I had to do is had a bunch of people come over and take all my clothes and throw it outside in the, in the garage. And I have no idea where my stuff was. So, and I don't do well with chaos. You know, there's been a couple of times that I've really gone nuts. But at least I found my underwear to make it here tonight. You know, in this, you know, in the middle of all this stuff, if you can find some humor, and once again, you laugh, and then you bring God in, and that's why I'm very grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. To these people that are new in this room, as long as you carry this, the 12 steps of the program of Alcoholics, get a sponsor, go to meetings, you know, carry the message and be of service that one day at a time, you can end up here. Thanks for letting me share.
Aren't they lovely? Next one is Jim C. from Pacoima.
Give you a sobriety date.
Okay. I love that. Do it again. I'm Jim Crossan, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I hope I can remember this. It's not February. I was born in February. August the 4th, 1968. That's it. And thank God, you know, I'm grateful to God today. I'm grateful for Janine, you know. And she talked about this guy who was, she's taking his place. So he's here in spirit, but I hope he don't walk through that door. And if he's here, stay out till I'm gone. But, you know, when I got to this program, I'm going to try to follow instructions. My life is, I had given up on life. I'd taken take that first step they're talking about, my life was unmanageable and all those things. When I got here, that's where my life was. I had no answers for life anymore. That was it, you know, that I knew I wasn't going to stop drinking. And my wife was gone, and the baby was gone. And I knew I wasn't going to beg her back and say, babe, I ain't going to do it no more, because I made all those lies to her, and I'm not going to tell her that anymore. I'd also attempted suicide, and I couldn't do that. I know why today. I'll tell you later. You know, and all these things when I got here, you know. But, see, I always told God that long time that I was brought up, don't question God. But I wanted to know why, God, why you do me the way you did it. I was born in Alabama in 1932. Well, you got a right to drink if you're born in Alabama. I bet you that. But See, it was a separate society there, you know, and I wasn't treated as well as other children. They had a sign for me where I could go, where I could sit, and signs tell me I can't go in there. I go to Tasty Freeze, you can't buy nothing here. So I didn't think I was being treated right. And in my family, God discriminated me and my family. 7 children, they all had normal birthdays. I was born on February the 29th. He didn't give me a normal birthday. Why couldn't mother wait 6 hours and I'd had a right birthday? My grandmother said she had to do what she had to do, boy. I didn't understand that either. Why? Everybody's happy but me, you know. And then at 3 years old, this man, very good, everybody knew this Jim Cross, this guy. Sign painter, artist, black and white, had respect for this man for years. God took him from me when I was 3 years old. Why couldn't he take that rotten guy over there as dad, that man, the way he didn't treat us? My daddy was a good man, a good daddy, and God took him from us. My mother married again, and at 16, I had to take that man's life. And I had to walk around in this town. That's the boy that killed his daddy. That's what I thought. Sensitive alcoholic. So my hometown became hell. High school, the same thing. I walk up to a crowd of kids. Somebody said, "Did I come cross?" Everybody gets quiet. I wasn't the kind of kid that started conversations, so I keep walking. I had to get me some kind of reputation to know that be noticed. I started bringing alcohol on the campus. In those days, we had corporal punishment. They tell you don't leave the campus. They had no fence to tell you. They say don't leave the campus. In fact, I think they should have it today because a lot of you young people wouldn't be here. Because what the corporal punishment will straighten you out. But I tried it, you know, and all these things happened, but thank God for the United States Army. I got in the Army, and when I got there, it was a segregated Army. Everywhere I went, I'm second class. And I'm very sensitive. I've been sensitive all my life and still working on being sensitive today after my age, you know. And but I volunteered for the regular Army after being in reserve, and they sent me to Korea. And when I got to Korea, I wanted to go back to the reserve, but they wouldn't do it. I didn't like what was going on over there. I didn't like what doing. And when I was in Korea, the war was on, and I was scared. Day and night, I stayed fear. I grabbed anything they had. They told us don't drink this alcohol that the Koreans made because they were killing Americans with it. They were making it out of wood alcohol. Americans was going blind. One of our outfit, I didn't see him, he died. A Caucasian guy, they say he turned about 3 or 4 different colors, and he swallowed about 2 or 3 times before he died. A horrible death. All the other kids said, "We're not drinking that," but I said, "Give it to me." As soon as I could buy it, I would drink it. You don't scare alcoholics. 18 years old, 19 years old, I was a full-fledged alcoholic then when I came home. I came back to home and I decided I'd go to college. I got to college. My grades was very good, but my conduct, they didn't want me in that college, and I left that school just before they shipped me away. I'm always changing, good geography, doing this. I got to Chicago. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to go back to school. My first night, I was in jail for drunk. Nothing changed. Carrots Jim Cross, the same one there, doing the same thing, over and over, gotten the same results. I did not know any better. And I didn't want to be that way. I finally got admitted to this university that my daddy wanted me to be, Tuskegee Institute, famous among African-American people, and still, in my idea, still famous. I wanted to go to that university because the Tuskegee Airmen were my heroes. And I wanted to be one of those guys, but the war had ended and I couldn't be that, though. So I joined ROTC while I was in college. They accepted me in this school. When I got there, I had stopped drinking in Chicago, but something happened. God took me out of the people that I was running with. They were the kind of people that your life was like a fly. They would smash you and no even remember who you were. So God just took me out of that desire to drink and left me for a while. I got to this college, and I'm being invited to join all these different organizations, and I was very popular. Then one summer, the phenomenal craving came back, and I ruined all of that. 1958, they told me I wasn't the kind of person that wanted to finish the school. I only had 2 months to go before graduation. I was being commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Corps of Engineers. I'm getting my BS degree and all these things, and I wound up in a VA hospital. That summer I was in this hospital, and they were pumping my stomach, trying to save my life. I had tried to take my own life then. I didn't want to live anymore. And I know today why I didn't do it, because January the 30th, 2016, then God knew I was going to be here talking to you. He knows it all, I'll tell you that. And what happened is, I finally got it. They took me back in school. I got this commission. I was in the Army. I went back in the military, and I ruined that. You know, they want me to be on, I had this great big speech to make, give to the public for this thing to explain to the ordinance and everything what the Army was doing. The next morning, they were looking for me to come to give this big speech. I was in jail in Raleigh, North Carolina. All the way from Fort Benning, Georgia to Raleigh, Carolina. That's a miracle you get there overnight. You know, they sent a plane, put me in the hospital, and finally told me, you can get off this active duty. I came to Los Angeles with a wife and a baby, poor lady. I got here, I got the job I wanted, I got the career I wanted. I was the first African American they hired on this job. But they were telling me things like, Mr. Crosby, we'd rather have you on Monday morning than sitting in jail. So nothing is happening. Finally, my wife was fed up with that stuff. And she left. She and the baby gone. That's when I didn't have any answer anymore. What I'm going to do is just get my wife back in the house, she and the baby, let me go, because sooner or later I'm going to lose this job. I'm going to be on the streets. I'm going to be just one of those guys walking around and with an old Army overcoat on. I don't know where I saw that vision is. But I got a letter from her lawyer and said, if you want to talk to us, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So what? I'll do that just a chance to talk to them. Maybe they can get back in the house and let me go. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I went to Pacoima. All right. Well, boy, I got them with me tonight. My backup. And I'm still in Pacoima. But the guy got up and spoke. He got up, what people don't like today, he told a drunkalog. They said, don't talk about drunkalogs today. Everybody know how to drink. I don't see that. If you know how to drink, what the hell are you doing here? I mean, I got to get drunk before I can recover. I'll tell you the truth, you know. And but this guy got up and talked, and he told all those things that I did. And people was laughing. And the thing about it, I said, this fool laughing right with him. But he got my attention. See, I've been told what to do by doctors, president of the college, PhDs, people, good people, parents, relatives, everybody tell me what I should be doing. But this man got up, and what happened to him, I know now. I felt the pain this man was talking about. It was like a doctor know how to deliver a baby, knows everything about that woman, but one thing that doctor cannot tell, what the pain that lady is going through. He can't tell you about the pain. So I felt his pain, and I understood what he was saying. And that from that night, the transition came with me. The next day, they took me to Burbank, gave me the 20 questions. I answered 19 of them. Should have only been 18. And from that, they did this one, that I haven't had a desire to drink. It left me. I didn't know where it left me. 3 or 4 months later, I was out diving in Catalina. Guy opened up the dress, said, Jim, you want a beer? And I said, no. What? I don't want a beer. I mean, I refused beer before, but I didn't want to make an ass out of myself. But this time, I did not want that beer. And I rushed back to the corner that night and told them. They just smiled. I thought they was going to all stand and say, oh, Jim, that's the way it's supposed to be. And the thing I would say, I had my problems. I had cancer. I would beat that. When I went through that cancer, I didn't have no worries about that. My group took my feelings over. They're the one did the prayer, and I said, maybe I'm crazy. I'm not scared. I know why I was not afraid. People thought I was a celebrity in the hospital. All these people coming to my room, and some of the workers would come peep in the room. Who is this guy? And that's what I found in this. I had everything I've wanted. Everything I've wanted, I found here. Today, I'm a respectable person. That neighborhood that I live in, I moved since then. And before I moved, I could walk down the streets, and I wasn't ashamed. See, I didn't have to sleep on the lawn last night. I didn't have to cuss them out while these damn sprinklers are coming on, and I'm the one that set the time they should come on, And see, if all these people knew I was an alcoholic before I did, in Macon, Georgia, they knew I was an alcoholic in jail there. All across the country, people knew that. A lot of jails. I'm in a hospital. The Army spent a lot of money on me. The government has spent a lot of money on me to try to get me sober. They didn't know those days what they were doing. All they do is put you in the hospital to give you Librin, Thorazine, Stellars, all that stuff they would give you. And you shuffle around like a bunch of animals, just like somebody leading you here and lead you there. And coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, it gave me another life that I could really live. My life just started. I'm 83 years old, be 84 next month, but my life only started when I got in Alcoholics Anonymous. I started a new life. They said, turn the page. I read the pages, and I read the black parts of it. And I did what they say do. I even got my sponsor. Everybody knew I was serious. She's a descendant of my sponsor. This guy was how could I put it? He was a Ku Klux Klan from Kansas. He wasn't a Ku Klux. They say he was, but I don't believe it. He just acted like one. And I'm from Alabama, from a segregated place, which I know I hate these people. And that's the guy that I asked to be my sponsor, Bob Norman. Some people here remember that guy, And but what happened, I was serious about this program. That man knew the book. And when he got up and talked, he told me things that he said that I knew that he was telling the truth and I would be all right. And I had to humble myself because I want to stay here. I didn't have all the answers I wanted then. You ain't put the sign up yet, huh? Remember, I was born with signs, honey. I don't like those. Anyway, I went to this guy and I said, Kenny, he's passed now. I can call his name Kenny Drake. And I said, this is the first time that I'm sitting down to some white man telling him all my stories. He looked at me and said, Jim, this is the first time for me, too. Otherwise, the first time I'm sitting listening to a black man, and he got you at my table. And he told me, if you do these simple things we tell you to do, your life will change. That's the way he put it. These simple things, just follow these little instructions we tell you. And all this black and white stuff, I don't know where that went to. See, God can mix anything he wants. He mixed gasoline and water together, and it'll work. He mixed Kenny and I together. The day before that man died, I was at his house. He looked up at me and said, Jim, I'm so glad you came to visit me. I don't know if I liked the man still today. I don't know if I liked him or not, but I know I love him. And not a day passed since that man passed away. I don't think it was something that he told me. This is what I try to pass on to this thing. that job that I was going to be fired from probably, I moved up the ladder. I got promotions. I was called an expert on this job. People came to me and said, Jim, we got a problem. Could you come and help us out? Asking me, $1 million projects. Asking me, do they know who they're talking to? Gee whiz. We can't do this, Jim, until you got here. This is what we need to be doing. And I give them the answer. And everybody started back to working again. Wow. Do they know where his answers came from? You know, and things like that, you know, happen. I retired with a very good, what you call it, money. Today I have a bank account. I walk around with $20 in my pocket. They don't have to go to the bar, you know. See, when this guy was talking about things that we don't tell, and somebody said it up here tonight, I think our speaker, that you go to the bar to just get one beer. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get that one beer. I'm going to do that. And the man saying, last call. I got it here before 7 o'clock. Here, 2 or 3 in the morning, this guy's closing his bar. And see, the thing about it was the difference between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. I did this over and over and over and over again. I had something in this background. They tell us this time it's going to be different. I'm going to do it this time. And see, but what happened is, being an alcoholic, the way we think, it won't let me think back. And it tells me that I can be different this time. See, alcohol dictates and tells us what we're going to do, what it's going to do to us. And the only thing I found out today that cure that thing is God. We turn to Him, turn our will and our care over Him. And these set of, I call them His steps, but He calls them commandments. He only gave us 10, you know, and we follow those things as close as we can follow. It's going to happen. And these steps He gave us to guide our lives with. You can make all the excuses you want to. The thing about it, you want to drink or use whatever they call it more than you want to be sober. If you want to be sober, you drop all those self things you have out there to what I'm going to be and I'm not going to do. Come in here with an open mind and a willingness. When I got here, I said, they could tell me to do, I didn't like these people. All white people, man. Here I go again. Gee whiz. But these people were saying things I needed to hear. And I could say, you can have your damn sheets on. I'm coming in here. I'm coming in here. And you tell me to be your janitor, I'm going to mop those floors. I'm going to wash those cups. But just don't tell me to leave. And over 47 years with doing this, I haven't left yet. I don't have to. Because God has given me the things that I couldn't do for myself. Thank you very much. And thank you so much.
Next speaker, Susan D.
Sobriety date, Susan.
Sobriety date, Susan. I'm Susan. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is January 12th, 1974. The olden days. It's good to be here. Thank you for asking me to speak. Thank you all for your shares. It's just moving and wonderful. I got sober in the Valley, and I'm living in LA now. But I have a sponsor. Her name is Julie. I sponsor people. I go to 4 meetings a week that I adore. I have 2 home meetings that I go to, and you go to more meetings than that because my life is AA. So I'll start with the beginning. I was born in Hollywood, California, and I was born a Catholic. A little Catholic, Susan, little Catholic girl. And I was raised Catholic. And I came from a nice family. They were very ethical. My father was a rager, and my mother was a victim. But other than that, you know, they weren't perfect, but I came from a loving home. And I grew up, I'm tall, that's right, I'm tall. What sobriety has given me, I love being tall. That's what sobriety has given me. I hated being tall. Anyway, I had a good childhood, and I grew up, and everything was fine. I grew up in Sherman Oaks. It was free. We were out on our bikes. It was a beautiful life. And then I got to go to high school, and I was popular, and I had friends. And then, something happened. I got this body issue because I fell in love in high school, and I was this Catholic school girl, and I wasn't going to marry this guy, and we couldn't have sex, and something about it just screwed up my mind. And I thought, well, I broke up with Eddie. I loved him so much. Couldn't have sex because we weren't married. Now, I have a couple of girlfriends that did marry these guys to have sex. One of them's married and one isn't. But anyway, I didn't marry Eddie, and it did something to me. And I thought, well, if I can just get thin enough, I can attract the kind of guy I want, and I'll live happily ever after. And somehow I got this eating disorder. Now, I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but this is how it started. My brain changed when I thought I have to lose whatever it was. So I got this eating disorder, but it wasn't an eating disorder. I'm a Catholic. It was not. It was a mortal sin, and it wasn't just a mortal sin. It was one of the deadly sins of gluttony, and it changed the way I thought about myself, and I lost my immortal soul. And it had been very important to me to have an immortal soul because I was a very good little Catholic girl, and it was very important to me to have a God. So at that point, when I started doing this stuff, I lost my soul, and I lost everything. And my life just got, I couldn't function. I dropped out of college. I just did this thing. And then the most wonderful thing happened. I was working for a doctor in Beverly Hills, and these pills came over the counter, and they sent them as samples, and they were called Dexamil in Milltown. And I took one of those, and I got my soul back. My whole life changed. I'm cute, I'm funny, I'm smart, I'm going to have the world at my I'm going to stop hurting my mom and dad, breaking their heart with this behavior, this puking and barfing and eating and all the stuff, and life is going to be beautiful. Well, within months, I started drinking vodka. I drank vodka because you can't smell it, it's breathless. And I found a brand called Papa Vodka. Yeah, it was $1.24 a half pint. And so I have this great job in Beverly Hills. I'm a receptionist. I get on the pills and the booze, and within months, well, there are several things I did. First of all, I started going to clubs on Sunset Boulevard and going home with the guys. And I lost my virginity. And that was hard because it was just some guy I didn't even know. It was on Beverly Glen. It happened on Beverly Glen. And his name was Dick. You guys, he wasn't a dick. He was a little moved by it too. Anyway, because he thought he was getting some slut. He didn't know that, Anyway, I did that a lot, and I was doing one-night stands on Sunset Boulevard. Then I decided that I needed some money, so I borrowed a little money from the kitty, and I got in the habit of borrowing money, and I embezzled money from my employer. A lot of money. Well, like $2,000, but that's a lot of money, don't you think, to be stolen? Yeah, I do. I did that. Then, Then I met a guy in one of these bars that wanted to get some diet pills, so I worked for a doctor, a dermatologist, and I called another doctor and a pharmacy and ordered pills for this guy, and I wasn't a doctor. And the police came to my door, and I went to jail, but they came to my door, so you'll see how sort of weird I was. They came to my door, and they walked in, and They were going through all my things, and I was living in Hollywood at the time. And they were going through all my things and searching me. And this one guy said to the other guy, "This is the neatest drug addict I've ever seen." So I've always been sort of OCD, but anyway. I go to jail. They put me in the jail. And because of who I was, how I looked, I had on you won't know this unless you're old like I am, and a woman, a Lance dress, Capezio shoes, and a little flip. I did not look like a drug addict. And the guy said, you don't even have to go in there. Sit in my office. You don't belong in it. And I did. I belonged in the jail. Anyway, I got bail, and I moved home with my parents. And they didn't know what to think. They called from my doctor's office and said, "There's a discrepancy in the books." And I remember this. I got to tell this about my dad because it was my dad took me to that office, and they said, "There's some money missing." And I said, "Well," I took it, and they couldn't believe it. And I remember my dad just holding my hand and not judging me. And I'll always remember that because it meant so much to me. He just didn't judge me. And I went on to bigger and better things. You know, I moved home. I got different jobs and stuff, but I drank. I drank all the time, and I puked. Drank and puked. And I broke my mother's heart, my father's heart. So finally, I got a job at, I had a lot of different jobs. I got a job in a car place and in the accounting department. And I met a car salesman. I know. Well, I looked this way. I was also good at shoplifting. Well, I forgot about the shoplifting because would I steal? Do I look like a shoplifter? And I remember once from Joseph Magnin, I stole a black cashmere coat with white pearl buttons, and it was beautiful. I just walked out of the store with it. And I remember the thrill of getting away with it. You know, and I remember my mom saying, "Susan, can I borrow your black cashmere coat?" And I'm thinking, "You have no idea, Mother. I stole that. You have no idea." That's how I felt. Anyway, I got to tell you something. Sometimes I get lost, so you got to remind me if I get lost. Okay. Where was I? Car. Thank you. Woodland Hills car dealer working there, and a car salesman came in. His name was Bill, and he had 3 motherless children, and I was living at home and breaking my parents' heart, and I also was celibate then because I'd learned my lesson. I was living home and celibate, and he got in my pants. So I married him. I thought, I've got to marry him to make myself, I'm a decent human being. I've got to marry him. So I married this man with 3 children and moved to Woodland Hills. And the thing is, my mother loved this man, and here's the reason I married him. Several. My mother thought he was wonderful. I thought he was wonderful because he was going to take me out of my house. And these motherless children, they're going to have a lovely mother, a drunken mother, dope addict. So I married Bill and moved to Woodland Hills. This is going awfully fast. I have a lot of time, don't I? Okay, moved to Woodland Hills. And I'm trying to think what else. 10 minutes? All right. Moved to Woodland Hills, and I drank. I was an alcoholic housewife. That's what I ended up. I was this cool streetwalker before, but I ended up an alcoholic housewife in Woodland Hills on Cass Avenue. And I drank every day, and I still drank Papa vodka. And I hid it from my husband, and he kept forgiving me. And I remember once I hid my Papa vodka in the pocket of a coat, and my husband found it and replaced it with rubbing alcohol. I know, not nice. And so after that, I found a better place to hide it. In the diaper pail. And he was real squeamish. He never looked there, never would any of the kids. But I remember standing there in the bathroom, taking my vodka out of the diaper pail, drinking it, and thinking, my, what a dry martini. I lived in this dream world. Oh, anyway. I was very unhappy, and I was a liar and a thief, and I did a lot of shoplifting. But by the time I got sober, I want to tell you, I had no cute clothes. I had going out to drink clothes, and I had working in the house clothes, and I always wore a bandana over my head, and I'd given up. I'd given up all my friends because I didn't want anyone to see me. I was so ashamed of what I'd become. I had all these friends. When they called, I wouldn't call back, and I was living a horrible, horrible existence. And I got drunk one more time, and my husband said to me, nothing. He wouldn't talk to me anymore. And I thought, he's got to talk to me. So I said, Bill, I will go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, here's where I thought it was going. I'd seen a movie called Come Back, Little Sheba. It was with Burt Lancaster and Shirley Booth, of course. And Alcoholics Anonymous were these depressing men that came to his kitchen and talked to him. Men and depressing. And I thought, but I will go there. I will go. I said, I'll go there, Bill, if you'll just forgive me. And so he said, okay. So I called central office, found a meeting on Shoup and Oxnard, and I thought surely by the end of the day he wouldn't make me go to that horrible place where I didn't belong. I didn't belong there, you know. So the night goes by, the day is there, and I'm thinking he won't make me go, and then I don't know what I wore, you guys. I know I wore a maxi coat. I don't know what I wore underneath it because I had no clothes. I'd turned into this hermit. I remember walking up the steps thinking, this is the end of my life, but I'll get them off my back. But I'm at the end of my life. Just try it for a while, get them off your back, and then you can go back to your wonderful life of drinking. Walked into this room, and I found you. The speaker was Norm Alpe, and he was talking about puking, and drinking, and all that stuff, and you guys were all laughing, and he was telling all my secrets, and you guys were all laughing, and you hugged me, and you embraced me, and you said, if you don't drink a day at a time, your life will get better. All you have to do is not drink alcohol. And I got my soul back again. This time, really. I thought, my God loves me, my higher power loves me. Another thing I heard, pick a higher power you can do business with. I like that, because I couldn't do business with the last one. Pick a higher power you can do business with. Yeah, that sounded good too. A day at a time. Live and let live. Go to meetings and don't drink in between. I could do that. But if you did these things, your life will be beautiful. And you told me what a beautiful life you guys had. Day at a time, a beautiful life. Anyway, I started going to meetings. Of course, if I'd stopped going to meetings, and I got this soul back, if I'd stopped going to meetings, I would have lost my soul. 2 minutes? Okay. I would have lost my soul. So anyway, my sobriety has been fabulous. A day at a time. I divorced the son of a bitch. Horrible divorce. I treated it badly. I'm sorry I did that. It's hurt my children, but I had to get out of there. And I also started, here's in sobriety, I started running. I remember on my first mile running and thinking, I can't believe that I am running and I'm bulimic, I'm still bulimic, and I'm sober, and everything's going to be okay. And my life started changing. And I remember my first 10K, standing there and saying to my mother, Mama, look at me. I'm okay. I'm okay. And Mama died 4 years before I got sober, so I've been talking to her ever since because I didn't have a chance then. Anything difficult I have to do, I say, come on, Mama, let's do it together. I got with the fellowship, the women's meetings, men's meetings. Everybody helped me. The mixed meetings, everybody, they made me secretary, and they were so nice about it, and I did a terrible job, and they were so kind to me. Kindness and love. And day at a time, my life got better and got better and better. And I ended up being a marathon runner. I did the New York Marathon in 3 hours and 43 minutes at the age of 52. I always brag about that. I can't help it. But that's sobriety. That's sobriety. Here I couldn't even barely function. I I went back to school. I had to go to school. I took 1 semester of accounting at Pierce College, and I got a great job in Santa Monica, because when I divorced the man, I thought I was going to get alimony and child support. No, he quit his job, so I had to, and they did a custody battle and all that, and it was horrendous. But I remember running through all of this, because that became my meditation. They said, take what you need and leave the rest, and my meditation was going to be running. I decided that. In with God, out with fear. In with God, out with fear. And those endorphins are wonderful drugs. Wonderful. They really help me a lot. Anyway, I still am active. Day at a time, my life got better and better. And I had this running group I went with, and I reconnected with my friends from high school, and I went to AA meetings, and I had my group of women that I adored. And we went on field trips, like to the Pacific group. We went to a field trip. That's where I learned how to always thank the speaker. I learned that there. I always learn something somewhere. Always thank the speaker. Then I was fine. I was happy, joyous, and free. I had a job. I was happy, and then I met somebody. Someone on the program said, "Susan, I want you to meet this guy. They're going sailing." And I said, I was happy, you guys. I didn't want a guy in my life. I'd already had a stupid asshole husband. And I was having this wonderful life. Anyway, I went because I told her that she really should adopt the child, and she really should buy the house. And she said, you really should go on this date. So go on the date. So I went on the date, and I met this man named Walter, and I fell in love with him. And I was 52 years old, 52, single, and he bought me a mansion in Hancock Park, and he took me all over the world. And he loved AA. He drank, but none of his friends were drunks. I've never seen a group of people like that. None of them were drunks. And a day at a time, we had a beautiful life. And he got very sick. He got Parkinson's. So, but we had the money to take care of him. I had lovely caregivers, and so I got to take care of him, and he loved me very much. And he's been dead now 4 years, and I had a wonderful marriage, and I'm grateful for that. 1 year, 2009, I get a call, and here's AA and how it works. I got a call that I have cancer, and I have to have an operation. And then I got a call 1 week later saying all the money was with Madoff, a guy named Madoff. And so we had no money, so we had to sell the mansion. I had to go to chemo, and you guys took me. You took me to chemo. Like you were saying, I was like a movie star in that hospital, in that chemo place, all these people taking me. Had chemo and radiation. You took me. You brought meetings to my house. And you came when I had to sell everything, and you haggled for me. I mean, you're just right. I was like carried through that. And I'm so grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a wonderful life now. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I have a boyfriend. 76 years old. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to look at him right now. So it does get better and better. I didn't plan on that either. But life is beautiful. I'm going to an acting class. I started an acting class at age 70. So fun. I never wanted to be an actress, but you have to get up in front of a camera. And it's so hard on you and fun, and I'm scared to go. And some of my girlfriends are coming from high school. Life is beautiful. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Group of drunks, I love you. You got me through this. I want to live forever and be with you because I think you're fabulous. We have a good time. Sobriety is fun, absolutely. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.